Scream 2 was released a year after its predecessor, the classic directed by Wes Craven. Here he is directing its sequel along with screenwriter Kevin Williamson, who I have praised so much in my reviews of the Scream films. And you have your usual Scream suspects in here. Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott, Courteney Cox as Gale Weathers, David Arquette as Dewey Riley. And their nightmare from the previous movie is not over. When two college students are murdered at a sneak preview of Stab, a movie based on the events from the first film, it's clear that a copycat killer is on the loose. So all these survivors and a bunch of new characters have to come together to find out who's behind this new murder spree before they all end up dead. And much like the first movie, there is a bunch of meta humor about the nature of horror movies. This time it's also mainly focused on the idea of sequels and how they always have to be bigger, badder, and better. And this movie was a lot better than I remembered it on this rewatch. I had tons of fun rewatching Scream 2. I think it certainly holds up as a worthy follow-up to the instant classic that introduced me to this whole genre to begin with. And I think all the performances in here are once again top-notch. Neve Campbell is once again a badass as our hero Sidney Prescott. And this is a character who has to deal with a lot of emotional trauma, and she's got to put aside a lot of bad blood in this. That's especially true when she has to come to grips with the events of last year. She falsely accused a character named Cotton, played by the great Liev Schreiber, and the uneasy alliance that those two have to form by the end is actually pretty compelling. You also have Courteney Cox once again as the overly curious reporter in Gale Weathers, and she is hitting a home run here. And keeping in mind, this was 1997, probably the peak of Courteney Cox's popularity. This is probably when the show Friends was at its best. And Courteney Cox was a huge star in the late 90s just because of that and because of her appearances as Gale Weathers. And she is magnificent in this, as is David Arquette. Really fun character. And yeah, there are points where I feel like the romance between Dewey and Gale might get a little bit too cutesy for my liking. Like there's a whole situation where there's some friction between the two and Dewey doesn't exactly trust Gale and he insists on Gale calling him by his legal name Dwight. And I don't know, I mean, even if I was watching this movie for the first time, I would be looking at it and be like, okay, I know you guys are getting back together. Like it almost feels like a reunion is fully telegraphed throughout this whole runtime. But I think if there's a newer viewer from the next generation after me that comes along and watches this movie, I feel like they'd be fully invested in the mystery. And I feel like they'd learn a lot about movie history in terms of sequels. Like there's a whole discussion scene in a college course where these film students are all sitting around the professor and everybody's got their own opinion. They're talking about what the greatest movie sequel is of all time. Empire Strikes Back is a sequel, mind you, and it is the greatest sequel I think that's ever been put out. Don't worry guys, we can discuss it all down in the comments after this. But I think this movie, once again, similar to what the first movie did, I think it weaves all this meta commentary into the scare factor, and I think it does it seamlessly. Some might argue that Scream 2 does it better. Which, speaking of, let's talk about this ghost face here. Just in case you've never seen Scream 2, I'm not going to spoil who the killer actually turns out to be. But man, a lot of these kills in this one are freaking brutal. The first kill the Ghostface actually achieves in this, I think, might be my favorite. Where you have Jada Pinkett Smith's date at the movie basically listening through the wall in the portable, which is creepy as hell. And then he gets freaking stabbed in the skull for his troubles. Like, disgusting. And similar to the first film, when Drew Barrymore bit the dust very early on, Jada Pinkett Smith is in here, and she does not want to go see a scary movie. She wants no part of this. And it turns out she walks into this fan screening for Stab, and it's a great reveal when it turns out that the Ghostface killer actually comes and joins her after he kills her date. And she ends up getting it as well. Which, real quick, can we address this crowd that was at the Stab screening throughout this whole opening sequence? This is by far the worst movie crowd you will ever see in your life. They're throwing around popcorn, everybody's cheering when Ghostface comes on the screen, and everybody's just sitting around and they're giggling. Like, if I was a critic who went to this fan event, I would have been hating my life. Because I would have been like, oh my god, I just need to watch this movie so I can get the most accurate review out to you lovely people. And everybody around me is just kind of obnoxious and ruining the whole experience. Which isn't to give Jada Pinkett Smith's character a pass either, because she was totally rude in one sequence. But yeah, mini rant about bad movie crowds over. But I think the most horrifying thing that Wes Craven, rest in peace, does with this movie is he takes this whole idea of a fictional stab movie franchise. He places it into the Scream universe. He's basing it all around the events of the first movie itself. And it's a movie franchise that's celebrated in this universe. Like, these people cannot get enough of the stab movies. And there's some people with logic in their brains that are looking at these and are like, these were based on true events. Sydney Prescott is getting phone calls in her college dorm from movie fans, and they're asking for her autograph and whatnot. And God, Wes Craven is just showing you a whole new side of scary, toxic fan bases, which sadly there are still a bunch of those around to this very day. Even though I don't think Scream 2 holds a candle to the original classic, this is still a damn solid movie. I think it's a great horror flick that pays tribute to not just horror sequels, but movie sequels in general. And some like myself could even argue that it weaves the meta commentary with the scare factor even better than it does in the first movie. I think that also might be a bit of an asterisk next to it, because Wes Craven already had one Scream movie under his belt. Like, he already had one other flick before Scream 2 came out to kind of get that formula down right. He had a bit more practice under his belt with the first Scream movie. So I think formulaically speaking, Scream 2 gets bigger, badder, and better. Just like all sequels should be. I think if you haven't seen Scream 2 in a while, I think you absolutely need to check it out when you can. I'm going to give Scream 2 an A. Aside from Scream 6, I think this is my favorite of the Scream sequels overall. Let me know what you thought of Scream 2 down in the comments section. Is this your favorite Scream sequel? And let me know. Just a reminder, what is the best movie sequel that you think is out there? Do you think it's Empire Strikes Back like I do? Do you think it's The Dark Knight? Godfather Part 2? I don't think there's any wrong answer to this question. Guys, I love making these videos and talking all things movies on the regular. It's a great community of film lovers over here, and y'all are invited to the party. So do consider subscribing and tap on that thumbs up as well. Really helps continue to grow this awesome community that we already are. And stay tuned for more videos hitting the channel very soon, including the next entry in the Halloween special, which is flying by. And you want to talk about fun sequels? You want to talk about groovy sequels? Let's look at Evil Dead 2 next time. Guys, we're inching ever closer to the end of the Halloween special this year. Thank you so much again for your continuous support. And with all that being said, Back Talk, commence.